Hello, you fantastic people, and welcome back to Borderlands 3. I hope you guys are all doing well. In this one, I have my level 72 busted flak build, utilizing the most busted items in the entire game, including the fish slap grenade, the Peregrine mod paired with that, as well as the Guardian shotgun or the Unforgiven pistol. This thing is ridiculous, and I might even never use this build after I posted it, because it was really fun to put together, but it's so blatantly broken. It makes no sense that it exists. But I'm going to start showing some clips on screen so you guys can see. If you guys don't know, the Peregrine class mod is from DLC 4. It essentially means whenever you hit rack attack, whatever enemies the rack hits, one enemy per rack spam, it'll drop a grenade that you currently have. And as you guys know, there's a bunch of really good grenades in this game at the moment. For example, the fish slap is a melee damage grenade, which, if you didn't know, melee is one of the most broken things in the entire game, so that's really fun to mess around with. There's also the gas coal constantly back in the game, so we've got the Vindicator / roided versions of that, which we can mess around with. You can use a light speed. There's also that new Pyro Burst grenade that's just come out, which is like the fireworks grenade from Borderlands 2, but in Borderlands 3. There's also plenty of purple grenades that you can mess around with. But the primary setup is going to be using a fish slap, because it's so blatantly broken that you can one-shot everything in this game with honestly not that much setup. And now is the time to make this kind of build. If you ever want to mess around with this kind of thing, it does take some really cool different combinations of artifacts, which usually take a long time to get. But from this week, for another 5 weeks, Loot the Universe is on, which means you can get really, really good artifacts as well as class mods from this event. And I got all of my ones that you're about to see in this video within the first week. So you guys will definitely be able to get it in the next 5 weeks and hopefully be able to put this build together with relative ease, because sometimes it takes a while to get these artifacts. But to be honest, if you don't have the time or can't be bothered farming really high-end artifacts, you honestly can just use a regular Victory Rush and it will work just fine. It just kind of means there's more interactions you can mess around with and do a little bit better in room clearing. But honestly, if you just want to one-shot bosses with a grenade or a rack attack spam, you can still definitely do that without those amazing artifacts. Jumping into the stuff you guys need for this build though, if you guys are rocking Mayhem 10 for the extra challenge, the modifiers I would recommend for the first one would be More Than OK Boomer, increases your grenade damage by 25%. That is perfect for this build. Medium and hard modifiers, I would go Drone Ranger and Healy Avenger. Super neutral, nothing has a chance to regen in this build. Trust me, you'll one-shot literally everything. As for the very hard modifier, it's actually a little difficult because we're not hitting criticals all the time, so holy crit doesn't make sense. Buddy system, the racks aren't smart enough to try and go for the drones themselves, so sometimes you'll troll yourself with your damage. I'd honestly go post-mortem and just have to deal with the skulls chasing me and get rid of those as quickly as possible. Those would be the 4 I would recommend. As for the Emotes you guys want to rock with this build, if you guys want to pair weapons with this, if you want to have Peregrine going whilst also shooting as flak, you can use pretty much any viable weapon like I usually have in my builds. It's not really excluding any of them. They will be slightly weaker in this one because we are focusing on our grenade damage, but you can chuck on action skill and weapon damage increased by 100% for a short time because we're using rack attack, so we're going to have that anoint up all the time. The main 3 weapons that really boost this build, if you guys want to use the fish slap setup, or if you guys want to crit swap, the 3 ones I would go for is first a redundant face puncher. If you get a times 14 one, you want to pair that with on action skill and melee damage is increased by 100% for a short time, because if you didn't know, this gun puts out melee damage, which is kind of dope. The Guardian shotgun, even from Vault Card 1, is insane. It has 500%, up to 500% crit swapping ability if you guys are 20 meters away or something. Essentially, it works out the further away you are from the enemy, the more damage this gun does. And if you're just holding it and you're doing grenade damage, that is being applied to your grenade, which is insanely busted and honestly just a ton of fun to mess around with. If you guys don't have that, you can use the Unforgiven instead. That is from base game. It does the exact same thing, but it is 432% critical hit damage. But actually, it's not distance based. You're going to have that all the time, no matter where you are. As long as you're holding that pistol, that critical damage on the passive of the gun will be applied to all of your sources of damage, including your racks, including your grenades, etc. As for the gear you guys want for this build, first of all, the shields. The Revolter is the main one that I use for this one because the 200% shock damage is just really, really nice. That is applying to your grenade as well, which is insane. If you guys want a huge amount of survivability, you can down yourself with this build because grenades do a lot of damage, particularly if you're holding a Guardian shotgun or an Unforgiven. It'll happen regularly. But if you guys are using a stopgap or a super soldier with action skill start, you'll essentially be immortal to that damage, which is awesome. You guys can use an old god from DLC 2. You can use a frozen heart or a snowshoe if you guys want to be applying a bunch of cryonovas, freezing enemies so they can't go anywhere, so the racks can chase them with ease. As for the class mod, like I said, Peregrines all the way. You guys can get this from DLC 4, from Dr. Benedict, from the SpongeBob boss, or it does rarely well drop in DLC 4 as well. They are a little difficult to get, and by little I mean very difficult to get. They take a long time to farm out to get really good ones. So honestly, if one passive is good, you're doing well with Peregrine class mods. It's nothing like the Bounty Hunter class mods. They're really difficult to get a hand on because DLC 4 dedicated drops are very low. But if you guys are going for these, you want to try and get grenade damage, or if you're using a fish slap particularly, try go melee damage. You can get splash damage, or if all of that else fails, go for shotgun damage or any weapon you guys want to pair with this build if you want. As for the skills at the top, you want to try and get as many points in Interplanetary Stalker, as well as Eager to Impress for that action skill cooldown rate, so you can have rack attack up all the time, so you can spam it whenever you guys need to. As for grenade choices, like I said, the Roided Gas Coal, the Vindicator Gas Coal, or heck, even just a regular Gas Coal is going to go very, very well, particularly against anything armored. You can one-shot Agonizer, Handsome Jackpot, Wotan, literally anyone armored, you're going to have an absolute breeze using a gas coal of any variety. The higher you go up, the higher the damage though, so just keep that in mind if you want to go for the best of the best. As for other grenades, the main one we are using is a fish slap because it's just so blatantly broken, it's insane. Try and get the best roll you can. As you guys can see as I'm scrolling around these, there are huge damage variants in these, and there's a whole bunch of different rolls you can get with them, so try and get the best one you can. Like you guys probably already know, they come from the cartel event. Fish slap drops them, so if you have the cartel event active, just do a bunch of cartel runs. You'll be able to get them pretty easily, but just trying to get the best of the best will take a little while. And the final one being the Pyroburst new Vault Card 2 grenade you guys can get with on grenade thrown. I would recommend, so that way you can throw them yourself as well as spamming rack, because this one is definitely the hardest one to use. It's chaotic, it's all over the place, it tracks enemies and sometimes downs you. If things are chasing after you, you take all that splash damage, but it's fun to use. Mess around with it if you guys want. It is pretty easy to get from the vault card as well. As for artifacts, there is a huge selection to choose from right now with this build. It's ridiculous. The main one, the only one you really need if you don't have a bunch of time to farm for those, is a Snowdrift Victory Rush. You don't need anything more than that. The Victory Rush is going to chain your damage and just keep getting more and more and more. But if you guys want to do insane stuff with melee damage, there is a huge selection to get from the Loot the Universe event right now, and I'll do my best to try and explain it all. There's two prefixes, two suffixes that can combine together onto one artifact to make crazy melee damage artifacts. The two prefixes are some kind of elemental stone, so corrosive stone, firestone, radiation stone, etc. That adds that elemental type to your melee damage, so that's sweet. There's also a knife drain, that's the other prefix. Essentially, whenever you do melee damage, you get lifesteal, which is obviously insane. Having that health regen pretty much makes you immortal. And then the suffixes, the second part of the artifact, would be a static charge. That essentially means whenever you slide, you get 50% bonus shock damage on your next melee attack, which chains to nearby enemies, making great for room clearing if you're using a face puncher or just a fish slap. It is awesome. And the second suffix on that one as well is a white elephant. Essentially, whenever you do melee damage, you get sticky bullets on that enemy, which if you're using a 14 pellet face puncher, is very nice. So that one's a little less reliable, but it's still very good as well. As you guys can see, I'll slowly go through these. You're more than welcome to pause and really have a good look at all the artifacts I have at the moment. There are some insane god rolls. These two right here are my particular favorites. This one, I did not farm. I got this one given to me from somebody from chat. That is like your absolute goal. So your perfect roll of a knife drain static charge with those passives would be insane. It is insane. I tested it out. The radiation static charge that I have here is also a fantastic roll. I did personally farm that one, so you can get that within like, you know, maybe a few hours. I think I farmed maybe 4 hours amongst, you know, a week's worth of stream for these artifacts, and I managed to get that. That's really good. But as you can see, any combination of those two prefixes and those two suffixes really combine for a crazy artifact. If you can get any relevant passives, it's perfect. You don't need the god roll. That's just like beyond not necessary, but it's fun to farm for if you guys want to go for it. Alright, as for the level 72 busted skill tree, we're going rack attack. As for augments, always rack accelerate because you want to have skill charges and cooldown rate, and you want to switch between, honestly, Flock and Load, Falconer's Feast, or Rack Opener Cold One, banger name by the way. Any three of those are fantastic. If you're using Flock and Load, Fire Immune mechs in the melee 1 takedown will be immune to it, which is annoying. Just use a Face Puncher. If you use the Rack Opener Cold One, you'll be able to kill the Fire Immune ones, but the Cryo Immune ones will be immune to it, which is annoying. But you can't really escape it. Use either of those two, honestly. Just use the gun for whichever one is currently immune. As for skill points spent, 5 points in Interplanetary Stalker, plus a few from your class mod if you can manage to get them. It's a kill skill. Increases your damage, which is great. 5 points in Hunter's Eye. You're going to be getting all of those bonuses against those individual enemy types because we're not using a bounty hunter, so it's not going to apply to all bosses at the moment. 3 points in Head Count. You want action skill cooldown back as quickly and as often as possible with a rack attack build, particularly one that literally does damage via only your rack attack, or primarily your rack attack. 5 points in Ambush Predator as well, increasing your critical hit damage when there are no enemies nearby. You're trying to stay away from enemies as much as possible, so you're trying to keep that distance. So you should have Ambush Predator pretty regularly. You'll definitely have it when you're in boss fight situations if you're staying far enough away. You want to send your racks after them and just stand back with the Guardian Shotgun, or you don't even need to use it, just stand there and watch it blow up by itself. 3 points in Big Game. It is increasing your hunt skill duration and skill effects. That includes Interplanetary Stalker, Most Dangerous Game, Furious Attack, and Frenzy, all of which we're currently using. Most Dangerous Game is a kill skill, increasing your gun damage, pet damage, critical hit damage, all that good stuff for a long time. 5 points in Grim Harvest, increases your action skill damage, which includes Rack Attack. Your racks themselves will actually be doing a lot of damage as well. That's why you want to have Flock and Load. It only sends out 1 grenade per rack hit, but having multiple racks will actually mean you'll take out more like melee one guys, because your racks themselves will be hitting pretty hard as well. You also get a bit of gun damage as well as pet damage in there, which is not super necessary, but a little bit extra help. 1 point in Galactic Shadow, cheap 15% critical hit damage, and Megavore Capstone. Not super necessary for this build, but still very helpful for things like action skill cooldown rate. Essentially 20% of the time, wherever you hit an enemy, it's going to count as a critical hit, which is great for damage, and things like head count, action skill cooldown. 5 points in Furious Attack, essentially shooting an enemy gets you increased gun damage, pet damage, as well as handling. It's pretty much just to get down the tree, not super necessary, but again, helpful. 5 points in Self-Repairing System. You don't really need a lot of the skills in this tree, so I thought, why not? Let's make ourselves healthy, and we don't do that often as Flak, but it'll save us from being down from our own grenades more often. 5 points in Eager to Impress. Like I said, you want to have action skill cooldown rate as quickly as physically possible with this build, because you want to be able to spam your racks as often as possible. 3 points in Turn Tail and Run. Stand Still gets you increased gun damage and fire rate, but if you're using just Rack Attack, not necessary. It's primarily the health regen and damage reduction while moving, which is very helpful. 1 point in Lick the Wounds. If you're down yourself to your own grenade, a barrel, stupid things in Borderlands, the pet will pick you up as well. 3 points in the Fast and the Furious. Gun damage, pet damage, movement speed whilst above half health. That should be all the time, particularly if you're using a Knife Train artifact or just staying far enough back. 5 points in Rage and Recover. Again, we didn't really need any other kind of damage, so I thought, why not? We'll make ourselves super healthy. We shouldn't be downing very often. I think, honestly, I didn't down in all my testing to anything other than my own grenades because I was being stupid and was too close to when I was proccing my rack attack. So if you stick back, you're getting so much health regen in this build, you're going to be totally fine, which is a rare thing for Flak. 1 point in Power Inside is 50% extra damage when you activate your action skill, aka hit rack attack, if you're at full health. If you're not at full health at the time, it's 25% extra damage, which is quite nice. That does count towards your grenade damage, which is nice. We're not using Pebble Tree. It's not super helpful for this build, if at all, and I thought, why bother using it? Not everybody has it. The Blue Tree, 3 points in Persistent Hunter, increases your gun damage. Action skill duration is useless for rack attack, but it is better than amping more pet damage because that's useless for this build. 2 points in Ferocity gets us down the tree. 5 points in Frenzy as a hunt skill. It is amazing. Whenever pet shoots things, you get increased damage. 10 stacks means 40% extra damage. You pair that with 1 point in He Bites. Essentially, whenever pet gets shot, reflects bullets back at enemies, and you'll stack Frenzy via that, which is awesome. The pet choice for this build, I'm mostly using the Gunslinger Jabba for ranged attacks. He's got an SMG, he stacks Frenzy the quickest, and doesn't get curb stomped by enemies. Other choices, like usual, you can use the Great Horn Skag. They'll increase your damage by a little bit. Gun damage, again, not super necessary for this build. Or you can use the Spider Ant Scorcher for even more health regen and a little bit of elemental damage there if you would like. Honestly, I personally use the Gunslinger Jabba all the damn time because he's just the easiest one to keep up all the time. You don't have to worry about him, and he'll do his job And that is Busted Flak. I hope you guys did find the video helpful or enjoyable. If you did, don't forget to smash subscribe, click that like button. Both are totally free. Feel free to check us out over on Twitch as well. We stream every night, playing a bunch of Borderlands, making builds, etc. Linked in the description. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. I'll see you guys in the next video and I'll live stream. Till then, adios.